In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. I'm your host and financial advisor, Rick Everett, along with the full complement of panelists for this episode to include Financial Advisor Danny Goolsby with Market Advisory Group, our lead CPA with Market Tax Services, Joshua Cicora, from Market Medicare Advisors, Trey Basa, and the attorney with Eidelman Law Firm, our estate planning firm, Gerald Eidelman. Welcome in, everyone. For our regular viewers, we welcome you back. And for some of you that may be tuning in for the first time, we're a weekly show dedicated to helping folks just like you avoid disaster and costly mistakes in retirement. A full team working together to help people with not just investment, but tax, Medicare, income, and estate planning.
And because we have a full team here together that we work as a tax, financial planning, healthcare, and estate planning, we meet so many different people and from so many different backgrounds. We really usually meet two different classes of people, if you will. Class number one would be someone who has experienced pain in their life because of something that has happened in their life financially that affects the future of their quality of their lifestyle. And then the second category of person would be someone who is wanting to avoid that. What we want to talk about today is those people.
Today we want to bring you the stories of people that fit into those two categories. The value of advice, either having and following through on that advice or not having it and suffering the effects. Our first case story centers on Ed. Ed retired from a stressful job at the age of 62, the earliest age allowed for claiming his full employer pension. He also chose to start his Social Security at the same time. His 54-year-old wife, Rita, had worked very little outside the home.
So what could go wrong with his plan, right?
What could possibly go wrong?
So let me tell you what happened with Ed and Rita. So Ed retired at 62, as you had indicated, but he actually passed away at 64 unexpectedly. And so leaving his 55-year-old widow at the time, left to pick up the pieces, if you will. His employer pension, when he retired from his employer, they actually only offered a 50% survivor pension for the spouse, and so that was what was left for Rita. Social Security in their household stopped altogether because Ed was 64 and Rita had not yet started to file for Social Security. She wouldn't even be eligible for the widow's pension until 60. There was no life insurance on Ed. And so Rita was left to struggle financially and before she could even claim Social Security for herself at age 60 if she chose to. Ed planned for income for his life, but what he appears that he forgot to do was plan for what happens should he pass first in the household. How does Rita survive? At Ed's death, she lost half of the pension. She lost a complete Social Security check for at least a period of time. She was, as I said, too young to qualify for the widow's benefits. In this situation, because of their circumstances, Rita's quality of life changed dramatically. Unfortunately for her, there was not a lot we could do at this point because there was too many wheels already in motion. Rita would have to use Ed's IRA just to try to fill in the gaps while she was looking for work part-time, while she was adjusting to life without Ed, her life's partner. So instead of being able to use his IRA for the discretionary things in life, whether it's taking trips or all those extra little fun things, she was using it to try to just get by, trying to get to the next area of her life. Let me ask you, Joshua, so if she was using this IRA, how was the IRA going to be taxed in this instance?
Yeah, this is, like you indicated, kind of a messy situation, and there was not the best laid plans in place here. So you said that when Ed passed, he was 64, she was 55. There's a 9-year difference. That's really important in this situation because there had been a 10-year age difference, the rules would have been very different. Because there was less than 10 years of age difference between the two, she got to take over the IRA as if it was her own instead of being a beneficiary. The difference there is that she's going to be able to take that and treat it like it's hers. So that means she is subject to the 59 and a half years of age rule. So she's going to have those early withdrawal penalties to worry about. If she was the beneficiary, however, she would have been subject to a 10-year rule. Now that might sound better in that she doesn't have to worry about those early withdrawal penalties, but because Ed had done so well saving, if she had been forced to take that out over a 10-year window, that was going to cost a lot in taxes. So in the near term, she's still got that age problem to worry about in terms of how does she get to 59 and a half when those funds get unlocked completely for her. But she avoids the having to take everything out in a 10-year period, which would have really drained that nest egg. There's still a short-term cash flow problem that we needed to talk about with her and discuss how that was all going to flow through in the short term. But for the longer-term picture, she was probably in a better place. It's still not in a great situation, though.
So she was essentially forced to use an asset, their IRAs that they had accumulated in their retirement life, for their retirement life. They had to use them as a Band-Aid just to try to scramble and make Rita's life more manageable.
So Danny, not an uncommon situation from the standpoint of, I know I meet with people, you meet with people, and I think as retirement planning is evolving, a lot of folks are planning retirement as if, in a perfect world, everybody's going to make it through the first part of retirement and on into retirement together. But that's not always the case.
No, it's not the case. In fact, you have to plan for these unexpected bumps to happen. So it's not fun to talk about whether losing a spouse, but you need to, for the purposes of financial planning, for retirement planning, you have to account for these contingencies. What happens if you do lose a spouse? What happens if you lose a job? What happens if Social Security is not going to turn on as fast as you want it to be? So if you don't plan for these contingencies, then there are major gaps in your plan that could literally affect the quality of your life going forward.
And another one that comes to mind is pensions. A lot of people are planning on pensions, but in a lot of cases, those pensions, if the spouse who was earning toward that pension passes away, the benefit to the widow is sometimes as little as half, or in some cases, none at all.
Yeah, in this case, they were fortunate to have half, but again, if you had put your plan together for a Social Security income and a pension, and then soon to be the next spouse, adding Social Security into the plan, that's one kind of outcome for quality of lifestyle, if you will, cash flow during retirement. But when that one spouse who is the primary Social Security giver at that moment, when he passes away and you're forced to take only half of a pension, then it left Rita really, again, scrambling. She had to downsize on her home. She could no longer afford the home. She had to rely on family. She had her life, what she thought retirement was going to look like, her retirement life changed dramatically.
Have you ever been in a bookstore browsing the sea of new releases and most of the books only have one author? But that can be deceiving. It takes a team to create a book. The author has an editor they trust, an artist to create the cover, a team to format the book correctly, and to market it to the masses. Effective retirement planning is no different. If you've been planning your retirement on your own, a do-it-yourselfer as we call them, it may help to bring a team in to take a second look at your plan. See if there's tax exposure that you didn't know about, or common Medicare mistakes, or if your estate could be more protected. At Market Advisory Group, we do just that. If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation consultation, our operators are standing by to take your call right now at 316-252-8707. Again, that number, 316-252-8707. And be sure and check out our website at ionretirement.com. We'll be back with segment 2 of the show right after this.
Out on the water, there is a moment. Perfect synchronization. The team working together in harmony to reach their goal. Now, imagine finding a team of financial professionals to help run your course down the river of retirement. Market Advisory Group is that team. Financial advisors, tax professionals, estate planning attorneys, and Medicare advisors. All in the same boat. If you don't have a team like this in one place, it can become a hassle to relay information between them. When you come to Market Advisory Group, we bring everyone together for you. To get you answers in real time. To help make sure you don't miss something that puts your unique plan off course. You shouldn't be the one doing all the work to keep your retirement on pace. You should have a team in the boat with you. Your voice telling them where you're at, where you'd like to end up, and how you want to get there. And at that point, everyone falls into sync, all pulling in the same direction, toward the same purpose. Your retirement's financial security. We are Market Advisory Group, proud sponsor of Shocker Rowing.
Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement. In the prior segment, we shared a story with you about Ed and Rita, an example of where an ounce of prevention could have been worth well more than a pound of cure. Danny, let's talk about another example, if you would. Share with us the story of Roberta.
Sure. Roberta was someone who was age 70 years of age. She was a client, and she was still working for her employer, but she was riding off into the sunset, if you will. She was getting ready to separate from her employer, and she was weighing different things in her life as far as her health care goes. She was wanting to look at whether her major medical would continue to pay, in some instances better than Medicare would pay. So she had some major foot problems that she was going on, and she found out after doing some research that maybe Medicare would not necessarily take care of her podiatrist as much as she wanted them to. Then on the other hand, she also had some other issues going on where she found out that before she stepped off into retirement, did she want her major medical to cover her? She had some major surgery that she was getting ready to schedule. And did she want the major medical? Would she come out better with a major medical taking care of it? Or did she want to look at maybe Medicare taking care of that surgery? She found out with her major medical that she had some 20% copays that really started to zap what savings she had. And again, that would affect her quality of life going forward. Trey, talk about her circumstances a little bit.
Roberta's case is fairly rare in our offices. Roberta was kind of in between workplace insurance and Medicare. So when she was leaving workplace insurance, they were going to put her on what we call COBRA coverage. It's just an incredibly long acronym that says you got coverage for a little bit, but you do need to make a move to Medicare. It's important to note, while on COBRA coverage, that does not count as creditable coverage. So Medicare doesn't see it as sufficient enough to have major medical coverage. When on COBRA, your premium is going to be just sky high, and the coverage is going to be lackluster. So we really do encourage people to come in and meet with us to come up with a plan before leaving workplace insurance to avoid COBRA coverage, to make that transition to Medicare just a little bit smoother. But to talk more about her circumstance, COBRA coverage, not going to cover it. If she were to move to Medicare and just Part A, Part B, she'd still have that 20% copay. Part A, if she was in the hospital for an extended stay, have a $1,600 deductible to meet. And then any services rendered there would fall under that purview, and then services outside of the hospital, that would be a 20% copay on most everything that she would need on top of an annual deductible, $226. So It's more of a gray area. When you're in COBRA coverage, you don't quite have major medical, but you don't quite have Medicare. So she was going to feel the financial pain.
So significant challenges for her, whether it's decision on which way to go, but also significant financial repercussions if she chose the wrong one. How could she have better been prepared for these expenses?
I think if somebody slid her one of my business cards across the table and says, hey, before you leave, give this guy a call.
You sly information there.
We do encourage people to come and meet with us about 3 months beforehand so we can set up this plan to, number one, avoid the COBRA debacle, and number two, to get everything squared away so it is a smoother transition from workplace insurance to Medicare.
Danny, in all reality, this risk can threaten the retiree's financial stability if the costs aren't properly managed, though, right?
Significantly. Again, depending on what's going on in the situation, and we just happened to catch Roberta's situation that was going to be quite costly to her financially. And sometimes, you mentioned do-it-yourselfers in the previous segment. Sometimes you don't know what to ask and who to ask those questions of. Roberta thought she was actually doing her due diligence, and actually she did not know who to ask those questions of. As it turns out, she could have taken Trey's business card and found out a better way. But let me ask you, Joshua, how would those medical bills that she was affecting, whether it be under COBRA, whether under her major medical or under her Medicare, if she decided to go that way, how would those medical bills work? Would she be able to benefit from any of those in the tax code?
She might. This is a question actually that comes up a lot, not just in Roberta's story, but in lots of cases when I meet with people who have seen some medical expenses. Well, can't I just deduct those expenses and, get some relief in my taxes? And my answer is always perhaps. Being able to deduct your medical expenses is really tough because not only because you have to have a lot of them to be able to get there. When you try to deduct medical expenses, you don't get to deduct anything until you've exceeded 7.5% of your income. So already you're talking about a big number there. And then you have to have enough between your allowed medical deductions and your state and local taxes, your mortgage insurance or mortgage interest, and any charitable giving you do to be able to exceed the standard deduction. As we talk about regularly, the standard deduction is pretty high right now. So there's really very few situations where people get to actually deduct their medical expenses. However, in Roberta's case, she's actually hit a couple of the instances where that can happen. One, your income's down, such as having retired. Two, if you're on COBRA coverage, so you're paying all those premiums out of pocket. Or three, you have some pretty major medical stuff going on. Now, generally, you don't ever want to be in one of those situations, but when you are, there can be some relief there. Just realize that every dollar you spend that you do get to deduct, you're usually only seeing a 24 cent benefit on the dollar there. So it's not this huge relief that sometimes people are looking for, but it helps a little bit.
Do you have a whole team looking out for you in retirement? One thing you shouldn't do is worry away your pre-retirement and retirement years thinking about whether your retirement plan is good enough. Market Advisory Group works together with you to give you peace of mind that your nest egg is as secure as possible, from the financial aspects to tax consideration, Medicare concerns, and estate planning. We do it all, and we do it all under one roof for your convenience. If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation consultation, operators are standing by right now to take your call at 316-252-8707. Again, that number, 316-252-8707. And be sure and go on our website at ionretirement.com. There you can catch past episodes or schedule an appointment directly online. We'll be back with the final segment of the show right after this.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have. by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement. Allow me to introduce yet another couple and what the value of planning might have been for them. A prospective client's husband passed away, and this lady, his wife, was on Medicaid, currently residing in a long-term care facility. Danny Goolsby, pick up the story from there, if you will.
Sure. So this is the story of someone who came to see us as a prospective client several years ago, and so we talked with them about their issues, again, a couple of years ago, and then our lives parted, and we never met again. And then fast forward, and then I'm meeting with, all of a sudden I'm getting a phone call and someone wanting to talk with me about they had just lost their spouse and what was the effect going to be with them on their estate. And so I met with the surviving spouse and also his the deceased family. And come to find out, his wife had entered a nursing home, a long-term care facility. And so she was wondering, and she was currently on Medicaid for her situation. And she was wanting to know whether or not she would be disqualified from Medicaid because she was the inheritor or the sole inheritant of her husband's estate. And so she wanted to know what those effects were. We brought Gerald in and had a conversation with Gerald about her situation. Gerald, take it away from there and talk about that a little bit.
Sure. One of the things that you have to consider when you don't plan ahead for Medicaid, because when the barn is on fire, the insurance is not going to work. Their barn was on fire. Having received all this property from her spouse, would it make her Medicaid ineligible? So let's take it a little bit piece by piece. They had a home, and while he was alive, he was the well spouse, he could reside in the home, and the home was protected, at least during their lifetime. The husband goes away, the protection of the house goes away. And now, all of a sudden, that entire asset is considered available to spend on her care. So Medicaid doesn't have to provide Medicaid or the services, because now she's got money that is available to her immediately. The other portion of this is the fact that there were several retirement accounts that her husband had. Now, depending on what state you are, the retirement accounts are sometimes counted for both spouses. Sometimes they're only counted for one spouse. So for example, in this case, they were in a state where his retirement accounts were not counted in determining her benefit for Medicaid. And so during his lifetime, she didn't have to worry about that. Well, he obviously hadn't planned, because he hadn't come and talked to us, and that he could have put other beneficiaries, but he did what happened, back 20 years. He left the same beneficiary, the spouse, and now she has a lot of money. All this money is now available to pay for her care. One of the things that we didn't talk about is the fact that this couple also had several children who could have benefited from this money because of the resources at the time. And this money was now basically going to be used away for services that were being paid prior to that.
So if I could jump in, Gerald, and state the obvious, perhaps, is this an example of where having had a Medicaid trust in place would have alleviated all of this spend down that was going on?
Absolutely. That's why we do these things, is to protect as much property as we can, because we don't know who's going to go first, who's going to wind up in a nursing home. And we protect, one of the biggest assets, the home, from being taken for Medicaid services, whether while you're alive or after you die. And so, unfortunately, you have to do this with planning. You got to do it 5 years ahead of time. So the longer you wait, the higher the risks are that you wind up with a mess like this couple did.
And you brought up a very important point that there is a 5-year, is that what they call a 5-year look back?
That's right. That's right.
So you have to be in good health at the time that you're wanting to initiate this Medicaid trust.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you get caught in between anywhere between the 5 years, under 5 years, then that trust is not going to protect that property. That's why you got to do it with enough time to plan for the fact that you need to outrun those 5 years.
Every issue we've talked about in this episode are just a few examples of what can go wrong in retirement, but everyone is unique. 3 different stories. Some could have benefited from advice before they had problems. Some benefited from the advice even after the problems arose. Are there holes in your planning? Would you benefit from the advice of our team? At Market Advisory Group, we bring our whole team to the table for your specific situation. Our financial advisors have tax, Medicare, estate planning consultants to answer your questions in real time. If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no obligation consultation, give us a call at 316-252-8707. That's all the time we have for this episode. Until next time, I'm Rick Everett, reminding you that we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
All client names have been changed to protect their identities. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Eidelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.